The town of Willow Creek was asleep. Its narrow streets, lined with century-old maples and flickering streetlights, looked peaceful at first glance, but shadows stretched long and restless in the foggy autumn air. The leaves rustled like whispers, carrying secrets that no one dared voice. Somewhere in the silence, the soft click of heels echoed against cobblestones. Emily Harper walking home. She had just left her friend's birthday gathering. Laughter and music still lingered in her ears, but she felt a chill creep up her spine as she stepped onto the quiet street. The night was unusually still, as if the town itself held its breath. Emily clutched her coat tighter around her, her eyes darting to the shadows at the corners of her vision. "Probably just my imagination," she muttered to herself, forcing a smile. The shortcut through Willow Creek's older neighborhood was supposed to be safe. She had taken it countless times, but tonight something felt off. A faint rustle behind her made her stop. She glanced back. Nothing, just the fog curling around the street lamps, bending the light like a distorted mirror. "Keep walking," she whispered, trying to steady her racing heart. By the time she reached the old intersection near Mill Road, the air had thickened, heavy with anticipation. Emily noticed a figure standing across the street, half hidden in shadow. Her stomach tightened. The figure didn't move, didn't even blink, just stood there. "Hello?" she called, her voice sharper than she intended. No response. The figure melted into the darkness. Emily exhaled, relief washing over her for a moment, then chided herself for letting fear creep in. She turned her gaze forward and quickened her pace. Minutes later, she reached the familiar curve near her apartment. The street was empty, silent except for the distant hum of a lone car. She unlocked her building door and stepped inside, the warm glow of her hallway lights a stark contrast to the cold night outside. Her apartment was quiet. Too quiet. The small table by the door held her coat and keys in neat order. She frowned. She never left her keys on the table. She always hung them by the hook. It wasn't much, but the meticulous placement struck her as odd. Shaking off the unease, she went about her usual routine, washing her hands, setting her bag on the couch. Then she noticed it, a small slip of paper tucked in her purse that she didn't remember seeing before. "They're watching." Emily froze. The handwriting was jagged, rushed, almost frantic. She rifled through her purse, checking her phone. No messages, no calls, just the note. She swallowed hard, a sudden knot forming in her chest. "Who would do this?" she whispered. Her thoughts were interrupted by the sound of a knock on the door. Startled, she dropped her purse. The knock came again, louder this time. "Emily? It's me, Jordan, just checking in." She relaxed, opening the door to reveal her neighbor, Jordan, holding a bag of groceries. His warm smile did little to ease the sudden tension she felt. "Hey," Emily said, forcing a casual tone. "Everything okay?" "Yeah, just wanted to say hi. Saw you walking home. Thought I'd check if you got in safe." Emily nodded, grateful for the normalcy. But when Jordan left, a lingering unease remained. She double-locked the door and tried to push the feeling aside, yet the note gnawed at her, refusing to let her think clearly. By 1 a.m., Emily was in bed, lights out, phone on her nightstand. Outside, the wind carried a whisper through the streets, brushing against the windows like invisible fingers. And somewhere in the fog, a pair of eyes watched, patient and unblinking. Hours later, the first alarm sounded, not Emily's, but Claire's. She'd been texting Emily since midnight, worried when no reply came. By 3 a.m., panic had set in. Emily's phone went straight to voicemail. The texts were read, but never answered. Claire called and called, growing frantic. Finally, at 4 a.m., Claire decided to check Emily's apartment. The door was locked, but there was no sign of Emily. Her coat, her purse, even her shoes were gone, or had they ever been used? Claire's heart raced as she noticed the keys on the table, perfectly placed. Something was very wrong. By 5:30 a.m., the local police were involved. Detective Sarah Lawson, known in Willow Creek for her precision and relentless attention to detail, arrived at the scene. Her sharp eyes scanned the apartment, noting the absence of signs of struggle, the odd placement of personal items, and the cryptic note in the purse. "This wasn't a simple disappearance," she murmured to herself. Lawson interviewed Claire, retracing Emily's steps, noting the friends she had visited, the streets she had walked. She examined surveillance cameras in the neighborhood. That's when the first footage came through, a hooded figure following a lone woman down Mill Road. The camera was grainy, the image shadowed, but the posture, the deliberate pacing, it was clear. Someone had been trailing Emily that night. Detective Lawson paused the footage, leaning closer. Even through the fuzz, she could sense the cold calculation in the figure's movements. "Who are you?" she muttered to herself. The town, meanwhile, was beginning to stir. Early risers whispered over coffee, over the grocery counter, over phone calls. Emily Harper had vanished. In Willow Creek, where nothing ever happened, that statement was impossible to ignore. Suspicion began to ripple through the community. Who could have taken her? Was it someone from the town or an outsider? By noon, the local newspaper ran a small blurb. "Young woman missing, last seen at midnight." It was innocuous, almost dull, but for Willow Creek it was seismic. And as the day wore on, Detective Lawson pieced together what little evidence there was, growing more certain with each passing hour. Emily's disappearance was not random. It was planned, calculated, and whoever had done it knew the town, knew Emily, and had a reason, one that was likely hidden in the shadows, waiting to be uncovered. As night fell again, the streets of Willow Creek remained eerily quiet, though unseen eyes moved in the fog, watching, waiting. The clock ticked towards midnight once more, and somewhere Emily's fate hung in balance. The town could not have imagined what was coming next. The morning after Emily Harper vanished, Willow Creek was buzzing with an uneasy energy. The crisp autumn air, once comforting, now carried an undercurrent of suspicion and fear. Coffee shops and the small market were filled with townsfolk whispering in hushed tones. Windows that had always been open in trust were now shut tight, curtains drawn, doors bolted. No one knew exactly who to trust. Detective Sarah Lawson walked the streets with quiet determination, her trench coat flapping slightly in the chilly breeze. She had begun her interviews, starting with the closest people in Emily's life. Her first stop was the friend's house where Emily had spent the previous evening. The house was spotless, but tension lingered in the air like smoke. "Emily seemed distracted last night," said Julia, Emily's friend. "She kept checking her phone, frowning at messages. I thought she was just tired. I didn't think." Her voice trailed off, and she shivered, as if saying the rest of her thoughts aloud would summon them into reality. Lawson nodded, taking notes. "Did she mention anyone bothering her? Anyone she didn't trust?" Julia hesitated. "There were a few strange letters. She didn't want me to see them, said they were stupid, probably a prank, but she seemed nervous." Detective Lawson's eyes narrowed. Letters, deleted messages, and now a cryptic note. "They're watching." This wasn't a prank. This was deliberate, targeted. Her next stop was Emily's workplace, Willow Creek Elementary. The staff were shocked and concerned. Emily was known for her cheerful demeanor, for being the kind of teacher who noticed when a student was quietly struggling. She had no enemies here, or so everyone thought. "Have you noticed anything unusual?" asked the principal. The principal shook his head. "She's a private person, but last week she seemed tense, kept taking calls outside. I assumed it was personal." Lawson made a mental note. She needed more than speculation. She needed facts, surveillance, evidence, anything to pinpoint what had happened between midnight and now. By noon, she had gathered several small but vital clues. Neighbors had reported seeing a black sedan circling Emily's street repeatedly around midnight. A man with a hood had been glimpsed near the building's entrance, and the security camera on Mill Road had caught the shadowy figure following her. Lawson returned to the footage. She paused the blurry image repeatedly, focusing on the figure. Every movement was careful, deliberate, patient. Whoever it was, they knew exactly what they were doing. "This wasn't a random attack," she murmured. "They were waiting for her. They knew her routine." The detective's next lead came from Emily's phone records. Her messages to an unknown contact had been deleted, but the logs remained. Lawson scanned through them carefully. One number in particular stood out: repeated calls and texts over the past week, all late at night, all cryptic. Emily hadn't confided in anyone about this relationship. Lawson decided to trace the number. It led her to a burner phone purchased locally, impossible to tie directly to anyone without further investigation. But it was enough to prove that Emily had been communicating with someone who wanted secrecy at all costs. As evening approached, the town's anxiety grew. Rumors spread like wildfire. Some claimed Emily had run away. Others whispered of a stranger abducting her. The local diner was abuzz with speculation. "They say she got into a car with someone," said a waitress, nervously glancing at the door. "Who would take her?" muttered a farmer seated at the counter. "Nobody around here would do such a thing." Lawson overheard the conversation as she passed by. She frowned. In a town like Willow Creek, everyone knew everyone, or at least thought they did. If the abductor was someone local, the betrayal would cut deep. By late evening, Lawson's investigation led her to Emily's apartment. She sifted through personal items, looking for anything the public wouldn't notice. That's when she found it: Emily's diary tucked behind a stack of books. The pages detailing recent events were torn out, jagged edges revealing a deliberate erasure. Whoever had done this didn't want certain events remembered. Lawson's mind raced. What could Emily have written that someone wanted destroyed? Could it be linked to the threatening letters, the mysterious calls, the black sedan, or the shadowy figure? Every thread seemed connected, but the picture was incomplete. Suddenly, the phone on Lawson's desk buzzed. A tip. A local informant, someone who rarely spoke unless things were serious, had called anonymously. "You're looking in the wrong place," the voice whispered, trembling. "They're hiding in plain sight, and if you get too close, she won't be the only one in danger." Lawson's pulse quickened. "Who?" she demanded, but the line had already gone dead. The detective knew two things for certain. Emily's disappearance was personal, and it was dangerous. Someone in Willow Creek, someone close, trusted, had orchestrated this. Night fell once more over the foggy town. Lawson returned to Mill Road, standing where the surveillance camera had captured the shadowy figure. The street lamps flickered, casting long shadows across the pavement. The same feeling Emily had felt, the weight of unseen eyes, settled over the detective. She shivered despite the trench coat. The town, meanwhile, was buzzing with speculation, suspicion cracking long-held bonds. Neighbors eyed each other cautiously. Friends whispered secrets that never surfaced. Families locked doors they had never bothered with before. Emily's absence was more than a disappearance. It was a fracture in the town's very foundation. Lawson knew she had to act fast. She began mapping the sightings, the calls, the black sedan's reported routes, the deleted messages. Each lead drew her closer to a network of hidden connections, secrets someone in town had tried desperately to bury. As midnight approached again, the same hour Emily had vanished, Lawson stood in the shadows near the corner where she had been last seen. The wind swirled around her, carrying the rustle of leaves and distant echoes of voices long gone. A flicker of movement caught her eye, a shadow slipping along the edge of the street, vanishing as quickly as it appeared. Lawson's breath hitched. Whoever it was, they were watching, just as Emily's note had warned. And deep inside, she knew this was only the beginning. Willow Creek's secrets were starting to surface, and someone or something would go to terrifying lengths to keep them hidden. The night stretched on silent but charged, every shadow a question, every whisper a clue. And somewhere, Emily Harper was out there, trapped in a world the town could not yet comprehend, her fate dangling by a thread. The detective's eyes narrowed. The game was on. Detective Sarah Lawson had spent hours mapping the fragments of Emily Harper's last night, the letters, the shadowy figure, the deleted messages, the black sedan. Each piece alone was troubling. Together, they formed a picture that made her stomach knot. This wasn't a random disappearance. It was orchestrated, calculated, and terrifyingly personal. She returned to Mill Road under the cloak of darkness, the street empty except for the fog curling along the pavement. Lawson's flashlight cut through the mist, illuminating the edges of buildings and trees. Somewhere in that fog, the figure that had followed Emily moved, patient, watching. Lawson felt the weight of unseen eyes pressing against her, a tension she couldn't shake. Her first stop that night was the town's only pawn shop. A tip had come in from an anonymous caller. Something connected to Emily had passed through its doors recently. The shop smelled of old wood and metal, and the bell jingled sharply when she entered. "Detective Lawson," the shopkeeper said nervously. I wasn't expecting anyone tonight." "Evening," Lawson said, her voice firm. "I'm investigating a disappearance. I need to know if anyone has sold or pawned unusual items, anything that might belong to Emily Harper." The shopkeeper hesitated, glancing at the back of the store. "There was a woman, hooded, very careful. She came in last week, tried to sell a necklace, said it was personal, didn't give much information." Lawson's pulse quickened. "Do you have records of that transaction?" He nodded slowly, handing over a receipt with a name she didn't recognize, but more importantly, the handwriting matched the jagged script on the note found in Emily's purse. "They're watching." Lawson's mind raced. Whoever had taken Emily was meticulous, leaving little trace, but making just enough errors to taunt her. This was someone confident, someone who believed no one could follow the trail. She moved on, tracing the burner phone records. Each call led her deeper into a web of secrecy that stretched across Willow Creek. Every night Emily had communicated with someone who knew her routine intimately, someone she trusted or had once trusted. The next lead took her to the outskirts of town, a stretch of abandoned warehouses near the river. Local rumors said these buildings had been empty for decades, though some whispered about illicit activity after dark. Lawson approached cautiously, flashlight in one hand, gun in the other. Inside, the warehouse smelled of damp concrete and rust. Broken crates and shattered glass littered the floor. Lawson's steps echoed, each one amplified by the cavernous space. Then she noticed it, footprints leading to a corner, freshly pressed into the dust. Lawson followed them and discovered a makeshift living space. There was a mattress, some blankets, and a small table with a lamp. On the table were photographs of Emily, taken without her knowledge, showing her walking home, entering her apartment, leaving the birthday party. She froze, the reality hitting her. Emily had been watched for days, even weeks. Every move, every step had been monitored. A sudden noise behind her made her spin. Nothing, just shadows. But then a whisper echoed in the vast emptiness. "You're too late." Lawson's heart pounded. Whoever had been here was gone, but their message was clear. Emily's life was in danger, and they were always one step ahead. The detective returned to the town, piecing together Emily's connections. That's when she uncovered the biggest shock. Emily had been investigating a local criminal operation, something no one in Willow Creek had suspected existed. The black sedan, the threatening letters, the hooded figure, they were all linked to a network operating under the town's very noses. It wasn't just a random act of violence, it was a cover-up. Someone powerful, someone trusted, had orchestrated Emily's disappearance to protect secrets that could ruin lives. Lawson's next move was risky. She decided to confront the anonymous number Emily had been texting. Using advanced tracing, she pinpointed its location to an old storage unit across town. The unit's exterior was nondescript, almost invisible from the road, but the scent of danger hung heavy in the air. She slipped inside, gun drawn, flashlight scanning every corner. Inside, she found a wall lined with photographs of Emily, her diary pages taped to the wall with markings in red. Maps of Willow Creek, notes about residents, all meticulously organized. It was a chilling shrine, a detailed account of someone's obsession. A sudden creak behind her made her spin. A figure lurked in the shadows, a tall, hooded person. Lawson leveled her gun. "Step out," she demanded. The figure hesitated, then slowly revealed themselves. It was someone Emily knew well, someone she trusted implicitly. The realization hit Lawson like a punch. This wasn't a stranger. It was someone embedded in the town, someone who knew every move Emily would make. The hooded figure smiled faintly, unnervingly calm. "Detective Lawson," the voice said, eerily familiar. "You're clever, but not clever enough. She won't ruin everything I've worked for." Lawson's mind raced. Emily's investigations, the letters, the deleted messages, the surveillance, it all pointed to this person. They had manipulated events, guided Emily's steps, and orchestrated her disappearance to silence her. "You've been watching her," Lawson said, keeping her voice steady. "You've been following her every step. Why?" "Because," the figure said, "some truths are too dangerous to reveal. Willow Creek can't handle them, and neither could she." Lawson's pulse surged. This was beyond a simple missing person case. Emily had stumbled onto something deadly, something that could unravel the town if exposed, and now time was critical. Before she could react further, the figure disappeared into the shadows, leaving Lawson alone with the evidence. Emily's fate was still uncertain, but the trail was here. The network, the hideouts, the meticulous notes, it all pointed to where Emily might be held. Lawson left the warehouse as dawn began to break over Willow Creek. The fog was lifting, but the town's undercurrent of fear remained. She knew the clock was ticking. Whoever had taken Emily was calculating, patient, and ruthless, and Emily, somewhere in the town's shadows, was counting on her to find her before it was too late. That night, as the town slept uneasily once more, Lawson studied her maps, notes, and photographs. Each detail brought her closer to uncovering the truth. The detective's resolve hardened. Emily Harper would be found, and the town of Willow Creek would finally confront the betrayal hiding among them. But deep down, Lawson knew one chilling fact. The danger was far from over. The closer she got to Emily, the more desperate the captor would become. Willow Creek's secrets were about to explode, and when they did, no one would be untouched. The shadows were watching, and the shadow was still out there. Detective Sarah Lawson had been awake all night, mapping every lead, every footprint, every call Emily Harper had ever made in the past weeks. The clues had led her down shadowed streets, abandoned warehouses, and into the hearts of secrets no one in Willow Creek had ever suspected existed. Each step had revealed one undeniable truth. Emily's disappearance wasn't random, and whoever had taken her was someone cunning, dangerous, and closer to home than anyone could imagine. By mid-morning, Lawson had a breakthrough. Cross-referencing the black sedan sightings, the phone records, and Emily's torn diary pages, she identified a series of rental properties on the outskirts of town, properties abandoned yet intermittently occupied. One stood out, a small, unassuming safe house tucked behind a row of overgrown trees. Everything pointed to this location. Lawson approached cautiously, the early morning fog curling around her boots as she moved silently through the undergrowth. Her radio crackled softly in the tense silence. Backup was on standby, but she was the first to arrive. Inside, the air smelled faintly of damp wood and stale coffee. The living space was minimal, a single mattress on the floor, blankets folded neatly, a table cluttered with books and papers. Then, movement, a figure sitting quietly on the mattress, head lowered. "Emily?" Lawson called softly. The figure looked up. Relief flooded Emily's eyes, and tears streaked her dirt-smudged cheeks. "Detective, you found me." Lawson approached carefully, keeping one hand on her firearm, the other offering reassurance. "You're safe now," she said, "but we need to move quickly." Emily's voice trembled. "It was someone I trusted, someone I thought would never—" She couldn't finish, the words choking her. Lawson understood. The threads of betrayal were tangled deep, and the person responsible had been close enough to manipulate everything Emily did. Before they could exit the safe house, a sound echoed from outside, the crunch of gravel beneath a car tire. Lawson's heart raced. Someone was coming. "They're here," Emily whispered. Lawson drew her weapon, motioning for Emily to stay low. Peering out the window, she saw the familiar black sedan idling at the edge of the property, and inside the car, a figure, calm, confident, eerily familiar, watched. Lawson's stomach sank. She had feared this moment, confrontation with the person orchestrating Emily's disappearance. Slowly, deliberately, she motioned for her backup team to move in from the rear, surrounding the property. The figure in the sedan stepped out, hands raised slightly. It was someone Emily had trusted completely, her childhood friend, Clara Benson. The realization hit both Emily and Lawson like a thunderclap. Clara, the friendly, unassuming presence everyone in Willow Creek loved, was the mastermind behind Emily's ordeal. "You," breathed Emily, her voice a mixture of disbelief and fury. "Clara, why?" Clara's lips curved into a small, chilling smile. "Detective, Emily, you're too naive. Some truths in this town are dangerous. You shouldn't have gotten involved." Lawson's grip tightened on her firearm. "Step aside, Clara. This ends now. No one else gets hurt." Clara laughed softly, almost mournfully. "You think you understand, Sarah? I've protected Willow Creek. Emily was close. Too close. She found out things she shouldn't have. I couldn't let her ruin everything I've built." Emily's heart pounded. She finally understood the letters, the surveillance, the cryptic warnings. They were all Clara's doing, meticulously planned to isolate her, to scare her, to keep her silent. Why not just talk to me?" Emily asked, her voice shaking. Clara's eyes hardened. "Because some secrets are bigger than friendship, bigger than trust, and some mistakes are unforgivable." Lawson stepped forward. "Clara Benson, you're under arrest for kidnapping, harassment, and conspiracy. Put your hands behind your back." Clara hesitated, eyes darting to Emily, calculating her next move. Then, with a sudden lunge, she tried to run toward the tree line. Lawson's backup team moved in swiftly. Clara was caught, struggling, but ultimately restrained. Emily's knees buckled, and Lawson caught her, guiding her to safety. Outside, the fog had lifted, and the town's first real sunlight in days fell across the property, washing the scene in clarity and relief. The aftermath was surreal. Willow Creek, the town that prided itself on trust and familiarity, had been shaken to its core. A person they had all considered a friend, a neighbor, a pillar of the community, had been the orchestrator of Emily's disappearance. The betrayal cut deep, leaving the town questioning every familiar face. Emily, though traumatized, found a quiet strength. She recounted the events to the authorities, providing details of Clara's operations, the surveillance, the letters, the messages. Lawson coordinated with the district attorney to ensure Clara faced the full weight of the law. Despite everything, Emily chose not to retreat into fear. She returned to her apartment, began rebuilding her life, and eventually spoke publicly about the ordeal. Her message was clear. Danger often lurks where least expected, and vigilance, courage, and trust in oneself were the only shields against hidden threats. The town, meanwhile, began to heal slowly. Families repaired frayed bonds, neighbors renewed cautious trust, and the black sedan sightings and whispered rumors became a dark memory. that Emily's story lingered, a reminder that even in small towns, shadows could move quietly, patiently, until the right or wrong moment to strike. Detective Lawson, now seen as the hero who unraveled the web of deception, continued her work, eyes always alert, mind always calculating. The case had ended, but it had changed Willow Creek forever. No one would forget that midnight when Emily Harper vanished, and the shocking truth that followed. As night fell again, Emily looked out her window, the autumn wind rustling the trees. Somewhere in the distance, a shadow passed fleetingly, a whisper of memory. But this time, Emily was ready. She had survived, and the town's dark secrets had been exposed. Willow Creek had learned a bitter truth. Sometimes the greatest danger comes not from strangers, but from those we hold closest.